Welcome to Palette University, and a video that I don't even know how to make because I don't even know how to start this video. So normally on this channel, I try to be as PG as possible. That's not going to be the case here. I can't talk about what I'm going to talk about here without swearing because I am that fucking angry. And you should be too. So yesterday was by far the longest day of my life. So it would have been really long regardless of the coup attempt that just happened in Washington, D.C. yesterday. But I also was flying home or flying back here to South Dakota from New York, about a 13-hour total trip. And we can talk about traveling during COVID at a different time. Yes, I understand. That's not what I'm talking about today. But I feel like I can't not talk about this because I have even a fraction of a platform on the internet. And I really, really encourage any other content creators, especially those based here in the United States, to talk about this because this is something that fucking needs to be talked about. And I'm going to lead this with this statement. And I feel like this should be pretty clear if you watched some of my content around May and June of this past summer. But if you think that what happened yesterday at Capitol Hill with armed terrorists, because that's what they are, invading and taking over the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., if you think any part of that is remotely okay, or you try to excuse it, even a little bit, fuck you, don't watch my videos. It's that simple. I don't fucking want you here. Go away. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's actually talk about this. So, if you're either not in the United States, or you just woke up from a coma today, yesterday, I don't even remember what time, sometime in the afternoon, a group of a few thousand armed, like I said, terrorists broke into Capitol Hill, the Capitol building, where the Senate and Congress were certifying the election of Joe Biden as president. And thankfully, none of our elected officials were hurt. And surprisingly, actually, I'm not gonna say that surprisingly. Unsurprisingly, only 4 people died. And the reason why it's unsurprising is because of who it was that was invading. This was the part that I obviously want to talk about because I'm not going to talk about, oh, nobody saw this coming. Everyone fucking saw this coming. Like, I was just listening to a Republican congressman from Illinois. I think it's Adam Kinzinger. He was on Stephen Colbert last night. And he even said, he was like, yeah, I told my staff not to come in today because I figured something like this would happen. And he's a Republican. And granted, he is one of the more level-headed Republicans, one of the few that, like, in Congress, I'll say, that I feel like I could have a reasonable conversation with. While I'm sure that I disagree with him on nearly every policy that he has a publicly stated opinion on, he's at least a sane human being. And while, like I said, I disagree with him on probably virtually everything, he has been one of the few people to actually be, one of the Republicans especially, to actually say what the president's doing is really fucked up and it needs to stop. And so, like he said, everybody saw this coming. How could you not see this coming? But one of the things that I really want to talk about the most about this is because obviously this is tragic. Obviously, I mean, I feel like there's something to be tragic. I feel like it needs to be kind of like sudden and unexpected. But obviously this is horrible. I'll say this is horrible. But just the extreme inequality that I've noticed compared to this past summer Whereas, as far as I know, last time I heard anything, 4 people died, like I said. Several police officers, whether it's Capitol Police, DC Metro Police, or National Guard, were injured. At least one of them was like rushed to the hospital, so I don't know how that person is doing. But I am amazed. Actually, I don't know why I keep saying things like that, because I'm actually not. I'm not at all surprised that the police just kind of let them do it. Like I said, this was the last number that I heard. I don't know if this is accurate any longer. This was as of last night. But as of the time that I got here to South Dakota, which was nearly midnight Eastern time, only 13 people had been arrested. 13. Compare that to the thousands. I think like 14,000 plus is what I saw that were arrested over the summer for protesting for Black Lives. Not to mention that all of them were sort of just escorted out peacefully. I even saw a video of somebody, like a police officer, holding somebody's hand as they were walking them down the Capitol steps. Could you fucking imagine if that had been a Black Lives Matter group that had taken over the Capitol? Or, God forbid, a group of Muslims? They would have rolled tanks into that building. And they would have slaughtered every single one of them. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So, to let people be calmly escorted out by police is unfucking acceptable. And I am the first one to say, in many groups that I'm in, I'm the first one to call out hypocrisy on my own side. Because you can't advocate against police brutality only when it's convenient for you. You know, you can't advocate against police killing of unarmed people only when it's convenient for you. So, I'm measuring my words very carefully here. These people should have been stopped. You know, I will say that with a caveat though. I'm saying this with a big if because I don't believe this, but if there was ever a time for police violence, I would think a coup attempt by terrorists on our Capitol building is probably pretty high up there on like the most justifiable reasons to for police to use violence. I'd say it's pretty high up there. Now that I've talked about the big, very white elephant in the room, in that, you know, back in May and June, when there were protests in DC, every National Guard member was like at the Lincoln Memorial, as if BLM protesters would vandalize Lincoln, of all people. But, you know, they were armed to the teeth. And it almost seems like they used all of their brutalization equipment, you know, the tear gas, rubber bullets, the baton, shields, whatever. You know, back in the summer, just we're like, there won't be any more of that. You know, that's almost what it seems like. But in reality, it's just they were like, oh no, these people are white. We don't need to bring out that stuff. So, again, now that we've addressed the big white elephant in the room, there are a couple other things I want to talk about. Because I'm so fucking... Everything about this makes me so fucking angry. So, number one, all of the Congress people that basically brought this about, you know, and I'll get to the president in a minute, but all the Congress people who have been saying, not as long as the president has, but for several months, since before the election, saying that the only way possible for Trump to lose the election was if it's rigged. Fuck you, this is your fault. You think you can just lie to people and make them think that their democracy is being stolen? Because, well, yes, individuals are responsible for their own actions. If you're supposed to believe elected officials. So, like, in that sense, I don't blame these people. as much as some other people probably do. Because they've been brainwashed. They've been told by people that they trust that this horrible thing is happening and that they need to act to stop it. They've been brainwashed. That's literally what brainwashing is. And so this is on them. And here's my question to them. Why'd you run away, you fucking cowards? These are your people. These are your supporters. You should have been there to greet them with open arms. So fuck you, you fucking cowards, for running away and not standing up for what you supposedly believe in. But in reality, we all know that you don't actually believe this. You're only saying this because it's what's politically convenient for you, because that's what you have been telling your supporters, because your supporters support the president and you want them to support you. So you're like, I'm going to agree with the president, but only to the degree that it's convenient for me. But which in this case, hasn't been super dangerous until relatively recently, because now you're basically saying that your country is being stolen from you and you need to fight to get it back, because that's what the president's been saying, and by agreeing with him, that is what you were saying. So you all are fucking cowards for running away and not meeting with your supposed supporters. And they're going to say, oh, these people don't support me, I don't support them. Bullshit. I guarantee that, obviously all of them were Trump supporters. So presumably they're all Republicans or Republican-leaning independents, potentially. But, you can't lie to people for months and expect them about something this important and expect them not to do something about it, especially when you're like, you should do something about it. So that brings me to the next round of cowards. It's all the people who are resigning from the government. There's only been a handful so far, but I guarantee there'll be more throughout the day and tomorrow. This was really the straw that broke the camel's back for you? The one that comes to my mind first is Mick Mulvaney, who was the president's chief of staff. For anyone who doesn't understand American politics, the chief of staff is arguably the second most important person in American politics, because they're the president's right-hand person. If you don't understand American politics that much, you might think that that's the vice president, which is true. They're the sort of figurehead, right-hand person. But in reality, the chief of staff is the one who organizes all the communication pretty much between the president and Congress. And they're the one who meets with the president, spends literally 10 plus hours a day with the president as their closest advisor, and also sort of their handler. Mick Mulvaney is no longer that position. He hasn't been for a little while. Until today, I believe. He was the special envoy for Northern Ireland. Basically, I don't believe that the United States has ambassadors to the different member countries of the UK. I think they just have one ambassador to the UK. But he was essentially the ambassador for the US to Northern Ireland. But he resigned that position in protest. There's 13 fucking days left. You were the president's closest advisor for quite a while. I don't know exactly how long he was in that position. Probably close to a year, if not over a year. I'm not quite sure. But either way, you were with him 10 plus hours a day, or however long you were with him. You didn't notice any of these red flags. This is the one that you're like, this is too much for me. Fuck you, and fuck anyone who also is resigning right now. Own up to it. You are also partially responsible for this. And I partially understand people who might be like, oh, I was there trying to, limit the damage. That might have been the excuse at first. But if you really felt that strongly about it, that you're like, that I need to be in there to prevent damage, why not just be like, hey, he's doing damage. This is the damage he's doing. People need to know about it. That's my thought. And now, lastly, to the president. There's been a lot of things nearly everything. I'm not going to say everything because there's been a very small handful of things that he has said that I kind of agree with. Like I say, a very, very small handful of things, mostly about trade and a couple of international things. Literally nothing domestic. But I've been very outspoken that I do not think, he won the 2016 election fair and square. I never questioned that. And, some people did. But I was always like, no, this literally just is America. People are like, oh, this isn't who America is. No, you're just not paying attention. If you don't think that there is a considerably larger segment of America than you probably think that supports things like what happened yesterday, you're not paying attention. And one of the few people who was paying attention is the president. And that's why he's the president. And while, like I said, I think he's generally a pretty dumb person and a person who's very greedy and only cares about himself and what's good for him and his family, you have to give him a small bit of credit for seeing that and exploiting it, again, for personal gain and for no other reason. But he was smart enough to see that when very few other people did. And how does he repay those people who got him to the presidency? By lying to them. And like I said, you're supposed to be able to trust elected officials because they're supposed to be the best of us. And clearly, not that I'm saying that Joe Biden is the best of us, absolutely not. But, Jesus Christ, like I said about the Congress people, you can't lie to people about and tell them that your democracy is being stolen and that you have to help me defend it. Even yesterday, right before the group went to the Capitol, he spoke to them. I think it was at like 12, between like 12 and 12:30 p.m., so like noon and 12:30, sometime in there. He spoke to that crowd and straight up said, I did not lose. There's no way I lost. They stole it. We, and he said we, are going to march up there and tell them what we think. He didn't fucking go because he's a coward too. He went back to the White House and watched all of it on TV. And even one of his closest advisors nowadays, Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, and I still don't understand how that ever happened, but he even said trial by combat, that they were going to have to test Congress through trial by combat. That was his quote. And they did, But the most egregious thing of all to me, probably not the most egregious, but out of all the things that really stands out to me yesterday, aside from the obvious racial disparity, is that in his pathetic little video that he posted to Twitter, he told people to go home, but he called them patriots. They're not. They're fucking traitors and terrorists. But he told them he loves them. He told terrorists, we love you. That is a direct quote. We love you. You're very special. That's what he said. And once again, just to sort of compare it to something, could you fucking imagine if, granted, Obama was not in office when 9/11 happened, but could you imagine if at any point Obama had said, we love you, to the people who did 9/11? He would have been completely rightfully impeached. And obviously that's not a crime, but that clearly makes you unfit for office. And because of that, a lot of people have been like, oh, we should impeach him again. Like, there's 13 days left. I don't think you could do it that quickly, although they did ram through a Supreme Court justice in like 3 weeks, so I don't know. And then I've seen stuff about the 25th Amendment. So if you're not also that familiar with American politics, the 25th Amendment basically gives a route for removing the president if they become unfit but are unable to be impeached. Basically, I think you need a majority of the president's cabinet, which are the various secretaries of whatever, Secretary of Defense, Transportation, all of them, need to vote to remove the president, in which case the vice president takes over. That's not going to happen because maybe at first, I mean, granted, like I said with Representative Kinzinger, I disagreed greatly with basically everybody that Trump had in his cabinet, when he first appointed them. But I think at least a decent chunk of them were there because they genuinely thought they wanted to help people. I'm willing to give some of them, not all of them, some of them that benefit of the doubt. But over time, those people did resign in protest, a large majority of them, or were caught up in various scandals and were basically forced to resign. But the people that Trump has replaced them with to get to the point that we're at right now, they will never do that. They would never vote to invoke the 25th Amendment and remove him. That's just not something that's going to happen. So I don't think that's a valuable thing to be talking about. I think it's much more important right now to, number one, focus on securing Inauguration Day. Because if this happened when they were only just counting votes, I can't even imagine what could potentially happen on Inauguration Day, which is 13 days from now. It was 2 weeks ago yesterday, or two weeks from yesterday. So I think that needs to be the number one priority, because why a group of a couple thousand people are able to get into the Capitol building in the first place is absurd. Obviously, there's videos, and granted, I'm not there, or I was not there. I only know what I've seen video of. But I saw videos of Capitol Police just sort of being like, yeah, go ahead. I even saw some videos of Capitol Police taking selfies with the people once they were already inside. Probably didn't want to beat up their buddies, but that's whatever. So that should be priority number one. Because, frankly, I'm really concerned that, Joe Biden something could happen to him. That is a genuine concern of mine. And while he was definitely not my first, second, third, fourth, probably even not fifth choice to be president, he was elected the president. And just as I do not want any physical harm to come to President Trump, I also don't want that to happen to future President Biden. But that's a genuine concern that I have. And after that, I think it should just be finding all of these people, because they were obviously dumb enough to not be wearing masks, number one. And number two, a mask really could have helped you not be, identified. Clearly, they're not good protesters, because any good protester knows that you cover your face so that you can't be found later. That's just basic protest knowledge. At least in America, because America is a dystopian future. And so they need to find these people and arrest them. And while I am against the death penalty, this kind of makes me reconsider that position. I still hold that position, but in my opinion, these people should be sent where terrorists are sent, because that's what they are. So this was not the video that I intended to go out today. I intended for another Joshua Dunlop biology video to come out today, but I postponed that to next week, where there will also be a channel update video, ideally a much more cheerful one. So, yeah. Stay safe. And a big thing that I want to stress with this too, that I probably should have talked about more earlier, is that our fight doesn't end on January 20th. Now that Democrats will be in control of the presidency, the House, and the Senate. We need to really push for national police reform at a congressional level. We need to really push for things like climate change action and not just these bullshit other measures, because we've been out of time for a decade. And we need to really, really push and advocate for the same things that we did over the summer and that we've been doing for the last 5 years. Because now we can actually do things about it. So we cannot let our foot up off the gas on this. We need to put it in I'm not a car person. We need to put it in the next gear. Because now we can stop fighting against something and start fighting for something, which personally gives me a lot more hope. So whatever you got to do to stay sane over the next however long this hellish nightmare lasts, do it. I'm going to be streaming some. I haven't decided when yet, but we are going to be streaming quite often, and they're all going to be charity streams like we did in June. So I'm going to be streaming, and any money that's donated to me will be donated and partially matched. I haven't decided. It depends how much gets donated because I'm on a budget. Donated to the same charity that we donated to back in June, which is the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. So an amazing, amazing organization and charity that always could use more money. And that is, if you feel like that's a cool cause or you want to come out and support us anyway without donating, absolutely cool. That will probably be in that channel update video coming out next week. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. So like I said, stay safe, do whatever you got to do these days to stay sane. I know I'm probably going to get really drunk tonight. And I don't like sort of breaking character like this because this is how I normally talk. I am usually a very passionate speaker with a really foul mouth. And I don't like breaking character because the character that I've sort of made on this channel is sort of like an intellectual, professorial type person. And I don't like breaking character like this, but it's something that needs to be talked about.